The action RPG genre is one that I always find myself coming back to. Creating interesting character builds, earning new loot, addictive progression, and being able to enjoy it in both solo and co-op play is what I look for in an action RPG. When thinking back to the older classic entries in this genre, the PC was full of great titles. Diablo 2 was my first entry into this series, and when combined with the various character classes, inviting visual style, and progression, I found it hard to put down, and one that you can easily return back to today. Titan Quest is one that should get brought up more, as it fused what many enjoyed about Diablo 2 with Greek mythology. For console players exploring this genre during the PS2 generation, they were provided many great titles that combined the very best of Marvel through the X-Men Legends games, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance's action RPGs that respected the source material. Snowblind Studios was a big driving force behind many of the console-exclusive action RPGs. They had their hand in Justice League Heroes, and while flawed, it provided a lot of great fun with a good original story. Prior to this, they made the Champion series for the PS2, but their journey into this genre started with Baldur's Gate: Dark Alliance. The Baldur's Gate games were PC exclusives, until the producers wanted to make a new title specifically for the home consoles, where Diablo and its sequel were responsible for getting people into the genre on the PC. For many console players, Dark Alliance would be their introduction. I always had a soft spot for this game. The world is rich and very interesting. The 3 starting classes provided a good amount of build diversity, offering a lot of replay value and personalization. The minute-to-minute action was enjoyable along with the addictive progression. It checked the right boxes and had a lot of creativity and quality put into the execution. And today I want to go over why you should play Baldur's Gate: Dark Alliance. Baldur's Gate: Dark Alliance is an action RPG that understands what makes this genre great. With the 3 unique starting classes, a good amount of build diversity, addictive progression, and loot with rewarding minute-to-minute gameplay, that makes it very hard to put down. If you're a fan of this genre, Dark Alliance does not really do anything to change the mold, but rather it commands an execution of knowing what players want from it. It wears its influences from many of the old-school greats on its sleeve, with an interesting world and very fun gameplay, specifically at a time for home console players, and with the remaster released on modern systems, and for the first time on PC, it is really easy to find out why players really enjoyed this title, and how it deserves more attention. Baldur's Gate: Dark Alliance is an absolute blast to play. Dark Alliance provides you with 3 starting classes. You can either be an archer, a fighter, or a sorceress. Now at first glance, these fit the traditional build for action RPG options, but one of the game's greatest strengths is how it allows you to personalize each of your builds into something unique to the player. For example, I really enjoyed playing as the magic user. Now you could focus all of your attention on her active spells, or you could invest into magical allies that could attack enemies for you. The sorceress may seem like somebody who does not want to get into the thick of the action, like a fighter, but how you build this character can make them more tanky. I opted to focus on using spells that would attack other enemies for me, like the magical sword, while I made her more into a paladin that could jump right into the thick of the action. So like I said at the start, you have 3 classes, but there's a lot to play around with. To make that character class unique, and through the customization, you can easily make rewarding and hybrid classes. And on top of this, all of the skills are visible to the player from the start, feeding into planning your build. It is a rewarding character building system, and allows for depth to create something truly unique. The controls are really easy to understand. You have a main attack for your equipped weapon, many skills to use, blocking options for defense. There are some short platforming sections, but the jump can really be used as a means of defense, as you can get surrounded and a few jumps can allow you to resituate. I really enjoyed the minute-to-minute action from a presentation point of view, as the sound effects are pretty good, but what really sells these hits are the impact. Attacking enemies will cause pieces of them to come off along with their armor. One of my favorite effects is to use an ice spell, and then cause cause the enemy to burst into pieces. Baldur's Gate gets away with much more than I think would be allowed in a teen-rated game, but either way it greatly enhances the combat. The combat is satisfying right from the very start all the way to its final moments. Now, as you defeat enemies and complete quests, you will earn experience points, working towards improving your levels. Level ups will net you with attribute points along with skill points. There are 6 attributes to pay attention to: Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. Now, depending on how you want to build your character, you will end up favoring other stats over others. For example, if you're aiming to create a more tanky character, a high Constitution is what you want to focus on. Or if you're mainly attacking enemies with bows, then Dexterity is what you want to use. There honestly isn't a bad thing to choose to favor over, as much of this comes down to what you want to be better at. And the same goes for your character's skills that you can choose. You can choose to upgrade either passive or active skills. For example, the active skills would be your special moves, like for the wizard using most of your spells, whereas you can also slot skill points into improving your hit points, critical hit chance, and more. Like I said before, one of the best aspects of Dark Alliance is how it gives the player a lot of freedom in how they develop and level their character. You are not on a set path, and so your archer will most definitely be different than someone else's. And just because a class might be lacking in one area doesn't mean you can't even them out based on what choices you make. For example, if you choose a class with a lower amount of health, then focus on boosting their hit points through Constitution or placing more on passive buffs. This level of choice greatly enhances the replay value. Whether you choose to tackle New Game Plus or start over, or even try out a new build, there's a lot to play around with.
Drawn by a haunting voice, you come to the Elf Song Tavern. It is a small place, filled with a motley assortment of patrons and grisly trophies. There, the haunting voice is all around you, and the patrons are silent as the song washes over them. One by one, they all seemed lost in its call.
Dark Alliance allows you to equip 2 sets of weapons that you can switch on the fly. This means that you can build an archer for both ranged and close range situations, and the switch means that you can easily pivot when the action calls for it. Now, the leveling progression is very good and keeps the gameplay addictive and continually rewarding, and the loot also factors into this as well. I thought the game provided a steady stream of new equipment and better items to use, along with plenty to sell at the shops. The shops themselves should not be ignored, since they usually have a few items that could make the next area just a little bit easier. Good minute-to-minute action, steady drop rates, and leveling helps to create an addictive flow that makes this game extremely hard to put down. Now, the campaign provides a lot of reasons to go back through it, but there's also some fun unlockables like a new mode and an additional character to try out. Now, when it comes to flaws, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance has a few things worth noting. This first thing is more something to note, as it really isn't necessarily a flaw, but something that could just be more clear to the player. So when playing the game, once you defeat the enemies in an area, they will not respawn, and the game can be pretty tough. So if you're looking to grind, you need to start a new game over, and then import your old character into it, allowing you to go back through old areas again with the enemies respawn. This is not obvious to the player their first time playing it, and honestly the system is a bit more confusing than it needs to be. When it comes to other flaws, the range bow combat can be a bit clunky as well, along with some instant death parts that can cause some frustration. Thankfully, there are not that many of these types of areas. Another odd element is that at one point you need to find a secret area for your quest. The game makes reference to its location, but the in-game map does not have a compass. So since the map will move, you have no idea which way is actually north. And my last flaw is that some of the bosses can be cheesed, taking the wind out of their encounters. These issues are noticeable, but what this game does well, it gets really right. Lastly, the soundtrack deserves mentioning, especially the tavern theme. Here are a few tracks from the game. Baldur's Gate is a great action RPG, and one that should be brought up more. Thankfully, it has received a modern remaster and is finally out on PC. This means that more can try out this title, and while this game doesn't necessarily do anything new for the genre, it does command a respect and understanding of it. The minute-to-minute action is enjoyable with some nice details. The progression is addictive through earning XP for most of your actions, along with finding a steady amount of useful loot drops. And honestly, one of the best aspects is how you can build your character. There's a lot of freedom and choice in how you can put your own personal spin on each of the classes. Plus, the entire game can be played in 2-player co-op, only adding to the value. I highly recommend Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, and it's most definitely worth playing. If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you would like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links will be at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.